I would like to share with you a couple of my personal entrepreneurial lessons learned. And funny as it is, I think if somebody would have told me like 3, 4, 5 years ago that I would actually become an entrepreneur, I would have called them crazy. I didn't think that was the type of journey that I was cut out to walk, to do. I thought of myself as a great facilitator, a marketeer, HR, double background, but whichever the form or shape, I never would have thought of myself as an entrepreneur. And when I launched Startups.be about 3 years ago now, it probably took me another 1.5 years before I understood that I had actually become an entrepreneur, which was a big part of the problem in the first place. So you might ask yourself then, okay, if you weren't looking for an entrepreneurial career, why did you start this platform in the first place? And it's all about something that came up a couple of times already. It's about passion. It's about doing something that you're passionate about. And if you're passionate enough, at some point you will get frustrated with the solutions and the things that are already out there, and it will drive you to change things, to take things into your own hands and to change things. And why startups became interesting to me and why I became passionate about startups and the startup ecosystem is not because I know a lot about technology, because to be very honest, I don't at all. And it's not because I knew how to run a business, to be bluntly honest, I didn't, and I still don't to a certain extent. But this is what got me passionate. I have a blended family, a newly founded family with 5 kids all in primary school, and they're actually here today, not sure if they're in the room already. Yes, they are in the back over there. Hi. Trying to watch why mommy is away from home so much of the time these days, while she became an entrepreneur actually. But this is what drives me. This is what gets me passionate, our kids. Because I understand, and I started to understand in the last couple of years, that technology is actually a great enabler to change our economy and to democratize our economy. It's not just about building unicorn core technology businesses. It's about technology making it possible for anybody to become a business owner, to do what they're passionate about, to create a career for yourself and not just join a career or join a company. And that's a very interesting choice for these kids to make in the next couple of decades. But I want them to still have that choice by the time that they hit the market and need to choose a career for themselves. And at the pace we were going, I had the distinct feeling that something was wrong and that we were doing a couple of things not in the most efficient and effective way. Luckily, I was back at iMinds, which is a software innovation center here in Flanders. I'm heading the marketing team. And luckily, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, as you've witnessed today, around who are highly talented and doing what they're passionate about. But many of those entrepreneurs started stepping up to me, knowing that I was in the middle of a huge network running the marketing affairs, started stepping up to me saying, even though it's cool that there are so many mentors and investors and incubators and accelerators out there, we just don't understand anymore. We don't understand what's the difference between all of them. We don't know how to choose. It's not very efficient right now. Could you please, with all of the people that you know personally, pinpoint us in the right direction? And at the same time, other people were knocking on my door, the ones that were running incubators and accelerators and investors and all sorts of startup networking activities, saying like, we've got this bunch of value to offer. We just don't know how to reach the entrepreneurs. They're not aware of us. They don't know what we're offering. They don't understand. They might not even believe us. Could you please help us reach those entrepreneurs, convince them of the valuable things that we're doing, and get them through our door? So I thought, okay, something is going wrong here, and if we all agree that this technology industry has huge potential for our future, then we should do something about that. And as nobody at that point in time was ready to step in and to try and get some efficiency into that operation, at some point I decided that maybe I should. It was clear to me. There was a demand on both sides. It couldn't be that hard to organize that ecosystem, to get those people to meet each other. I even tried it in my spare time at first, launching a Tech Startup Day event, which was basically a co-organized event with 25 of those organizations working together. Simple as it sounds, right? But after every effort that we made, it kind of falls flat again if there's nobody driving and getting the people together and getting the people connected and getting the people to talk to each other. So obviously they needed something in between. So we created the non-profit organization Startups.be, which I co-founded with a number of technology entrepreneurs, people who basically knew what they were doing and were there to help me and to advise me. But what we found out is the very dangerous trick about those sexy stories that were mentioned before. Everybody agreed that it's useful to join forces and to create one big network with all of the incubators and all of the accelerators and all of the startups in there, and to make it as easy as possible for them to interconnect and to get to know each other. Everybody was into that idea and enthusiastic and cheering me on. And everybody agreed that it probably makes sense to join all of those forces together and to go abroad and create a Belgian voice out there and be proud of what we're doing and create a stage for Belgian entrepreneurs to shine and to do business in a more efficient way because of the power of being together and having somebody that would actually help them prepare and help them get into those contacts with potential customers and investors. So everybody said, yay, this is what we need. We need more of this. We need more of this type of event. I've heard it many times today as well, and I mean, it's very satisfactory to hear all that, but that doesn't mean that there's actually somebody paying the bills. Philanthropy in itself is not a business. So after a year and a half of going without wages and creating events like this and creating the network, and I have 55 partners in there already who contributed slightly, but not much, I was able to cover costs, but I was not able to pay a wage for myself, nor was I able to attract more people to help me, leverage this potential. And that was very frustrating when I realized that indeed I needed to understand that I was and should be an entrepreneur, and that even in a philanthropic business, it should be a business with paying customers in the end, or some kind of business model at least behind it to make sure that bills are covered. So my very first, very important lesson was, it's not that because people are cheerful and enthusiastic that there's an actual willingness to pay. So I needed to go back to each of these stakeholders, to the startups, to the incubators, to the accelerators, to the investors, to understand what's the value in there, in this network for them, and would they or would they be willing to pay for certain of those services and solutions that we were trying to develop. And at the same time, there were so many people saying, yeah, sure, I'll join the network. Yeah, sure, I'll sponsor your event. Yeah, sure, I want to make use of that service. But that promise is actually not a sale. And I would probably benefit a lot from joining one of Sanjoy's training workshops that we saw this morning, because I'm actually very bad at sales, is what I found out. And that's tricky. If you're a business owner, if you're a business founder, Sanjay said this morning, is not good at making the sale, then you have a huge issue. And we had a huge issue because of that. So I started understanding that I needed to talk to our customers, and I went out there as much as I could, and we researched and we talked and got lots of insights and feedback. And back then, the first 2.5 years, it was just me and an intern. So we basically spread and talked to many people and started understanding that there was actual value in what we were doing. And many people were at least willing to pay to a certain extent for what we were doing. We needed focus. Back then, it was way too much, and we needed focus to understand which product for which customer was the one that they were willing to pay for. So we started focusing on that. Sales started coming, but especially in this philanthropic, non-profit kind of environment, to a certain extent, you're still very much dependent on government money, sponsorship money from big corporations, and it takes you a hell of a lot of time to get that money into your bank account. So just making the sale, signing the contract, that doesn't really solve my problem, in the sense that in many cases I had to spend the money first to get the money in at a later stage. And especially because we started scaling at that point in time, we were one and an intern first, we're 8 right now. So if you're scaling and you're spending money before it's coming in, at some point you have a huge problem. So I actually almost bankrupted, well, very near bankrupted the non-profit organization about a year ago. I was back against the wall with more invoices on my desk than I was able to pay with the money in the bank account at that point in time. And still, everybody kept saying, cheering, like, this is what we need, keep going, keep going. And I felt guilty and I felt responsible and knew I was doing something bad. And I think I can testify that I've never cried as much in the last 3 years. And I've never ever actually opened up about that to a wider audience. I think people in my very near circle knew that I was struggling and I was open to them about it. But I don't think many people in the actual Belgian ecosystem understood how much we were struggling with this problem, with cash coming in way too late and invoices piling up while we'll add it. So cash out, cash in delays are killers, and not just in a non-profit organization. I'm learned since then, from starting to share my story one-on-one, that many startups and many businesses are suffering from the same problem, and that it's very hard to get bridging loans or pre-financing solutions. And that's something to keep in the back of your mind. If you're ready to start a business, make sure you have sufficient cash in the bank account, also to be able to attract people in that will help you out, because it's going to be a very, very lonely ride if you don't. Cash is absolutely king. But luckily, I found ways to bridge that gap and to survive with a nonprofit. And it wasn't just me anymore. I started hiring. Lara, first an intern who joined later on full-time in the staff, has been around here, is doing an amazing job to prepare all of the speakers. Gabby also joined us as an intern first, is joining the team full-time officially on the payroll as of 1st of December. We had Thibaut and Yoncha coming in with quite some business experience already earlier this year. We had Yeri joining us thanks to a great manifesto outreach and government understanding that buying from startups is actually something valuable. So Yeri was able to join us specifically for that, to help government to buy from startups. Isn't that cool? And then we have Diana and Natalia, who joined us very recently. So this team is growing, and that's amazing, because the lonely ride has stopped becoming a lonely ride. There's actually a team behind you. And Startups.be as a brand grew from this first tech startup day, which grew into a 1,000 people event already, and it's still growing. Join this event, which is continuing to evolve over time and became more international. We had our international campaigns with a couple of big winners. We had a Belgian company win the Boost competition at the Next Web conference in Amsterdam, like the main pitching competition. We had a Belgian startup winning the public prize at Startup Nations, a big conference in Seoul. So we had a couple of big success stories. Belgian entrepreneurs really shining on that international stage that we were able to put them on. So that was cool. We launched the Startup Manifesto about 6 months ago at our last Tech Startup Day, with a couple of entrepreneurs reaching out to each other and to me saying, like, shouldn't we create a voice for startups, for entrepreneurs, to talk to government and key decision makers and tell them how we can actually improve the entrepreneurial climate in Belgium. Stop whining, stop complaining, let's propose some solutions. And that's actually the way to create change. The Buy from Startups is one thing that came out of that. Change legislation is another. There's a couple of tax exemptions, a tax shelter for angel investments. Lots of good came from the fact that over 120 entrepreneurs showed the willingness to jointly create this voice and this document stating this and this and this and this are the 5 areas and the number of proposals that we would like to put on the table to constructively move forward with government and with the Belgian entrepreneurial climate, and have actually changed, and that's great. Then we had the BTech community, which is basically the Belgian tech community that started organizing itself by using a common hashtag. Right now, almost anything shared about Belgian technology and startups in Belgium is accompanied by this BTech hashtag, and there's a Facebook group and a LinkedIn. And so the community is actually organizing itself, sharing on a day-to-day basis their best practices, their lessons learned. And because of that, the ecosystem is maturing, and the entrepreneurs are learning from each other. And then thanks to this Startups.be joint voice and joint platform, we were able to join European projects and really lean on the way that Europe is looking at startups. I'm flying over to Lisbon next week to have not just a speech at the ICT 2015 conference on how entrepreneurs can actually bottom-up influence the policy making, thanks to Startup Manifesto type of exercises, but we were able to get a one-on-one with Commissioner Oettinger, who's actually in charge of the digital agenda for Europe, to help him understand how entrepreneurs can help bottom-up to create the digital single market and to counteract all that's wrong with this fragmented and very diverse landscape in Europe, making it quite hard for European companies to scale within Europe, which is why some entrepreneurs do claim that it's easier and probably better to go outside of Europe if you really want to scale fast. we don't want them all to flee Europe, right? We want some of them at least to stay here. So what we're working on is see how we can create a network, not just a Belgian network, but a European network of organizations, of voices, to make sure that those entrepreneurs get the opportunity as soon as possible to have a more unified European market. So lots of things have started changing because of this platform that was created, while at the same time, we were still struggling very hard with the cash and with the monetization. And suddenly people started asking me to give keynote speeches and to be in panels and to be in high-level brainstorming sessions with key decision takers and politicians and such. And I was like shaking on my legs, thinking, why on earth am I the one to do this? What do I know in the first place about technology and startups? I wasn't even prepared to be an entrepreneur, and now I'm supposed to be a leader in this type of discussion. And some people really grabbed me by the shoulders and said, yes, you do know what you're talking about. You've been in this ecosystem for a long time. Own up, shake yourself awake, understand the opportunity that's in front of you, grab it and do something good for us, with us, to create that better community. Be a leader. Step on stage. And so I started doing this, and it's still very scary, I can tell you, to be on this type of stage and to talk to dozens, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people about startups and the opportunity that technology gives to anyone in the street to be passionate about what they do and do something that they're passionate about. But by doing so, I can actually make a change in life, and that's why I started out doing this anyway. So I need to grab those opportunities, scary as they are, while at the same time, behind the scenes, working very hard on getting the right team in, on getting the operations right, being busy with HR policies and with accounting issues and getting the invoices paid. And it's all over the place, and it's a mixture, it's a chaos, while at the same time you're still working towards that one goal that you set for yourself. And so I totally agree that you need focus and you need long-term strategy to make sure you don't drown into that chaos of day-to-day activities that in many cases have nothing to do with your long-term goal, but it's just necessities to be able to get there in the end. So what I found out as well is that although I already thought it was hard to start out and to get that first cash on the table and to hire the first people, the scaling is actually the most tough part so far, at least. To get that team in there, to start delegating, to start focusing on some aspects of the business and leave the other aspects to some other people, to draw the bigger picture and to have like a long-term strategy developed, to work on business models, to work on fundraising. Those were aspects I didn't even consider when I started out that would actually at some point be part of what I would be doing. So scaling is not as easy as it sounded, but luckily, especially within the Startups.be context, I can hardly say I'm still on my own. Apart from the awesome team that we're assembling, there's like a multitude of partners that have actually committed to joining this bigger network, to joining this mission, to joining this joint vision, and to create those opportunities for the next generation of entrepreneurs, or even for this generation of entrepreneurs, luckily. And I feel really grateful for having them in there. And to keep things short, it's a drag. It's been shitty some days of my life. The last 3 years, probably most days of my life, have been shitty, to be honest. But in the end, my boyfriend always tells me when I get home after this type of event, that's the time when you're smiling. The time when people are grateful for you enabling this type of speakers to be on stage. That's the time when you're at your best, because that's the time that you can actually sense the change that you're making in their lives. And that's what makes it grateful for me, and that's what makes it worthwhile for me. So in the end, if you can do something that you're passionate about and work towards goals that you're passionate about, it will put that smile up on your face and it will make it worthwhile. But that being said, it's very important to keep this in mind, my passion, my goal. And I needed to understand over these last couple of months that if they are my long-term focus, I should make sure I don't burn out in the process. And I, again, nearly did at least 2 times in the last few years. And I totally agree with some of the other speakers saying, sometimes it's better to work less. if you're working towards your long-term goals, it doesn't help you to crash yourself in the process, because they're actually what I care about. They're what makes it worthwhile to me, and they will be the ones there at the end of the road, and they will be the ones, you know, sticking with me if I get a black card at some point. And having lost my mother at a fairly young age, I don't want to get to a point in my life when I need to look back and be sorry for the things that I did do or didn't do in this case. I want to be, maybe not a full-time mommy, I'm not cut out for that either, but I want to be there for them, and I want them to be a big part of my life and to get as many takeaways from that as I took from my mother, even though I didn't know her for longer than 12, 13 years. And that's why I'm very happy that they're with me here today over there in the back, and I hope that they will do me the honor of joining me on stage to really officially close this conference, because I really want you to feel this moment and understand that you need to embrace the people around you, that you have to be grateful for the people standing by you, and never ever forget to cherish them. Because for me, that's the most important lesson in life, and is the most important lesson in business, to embrace the people around you, to be grateful for them to be there. My team, our sponsors, our partners, all of you being here, but most especially my family. Thank you.